And now, live from Denver, Colorado, this is Before the Chop, the morning show for barbers. Here's your host, David Ford.
Good morning, barbers. I'm David Ford, and I'm skipping the warm-up today because I need a number from you before either of us gets comfortable. Say it out loud. Nobody's listening. Unless the show's playing at the shop right now, in which case, just mouth it. Protect yourself. Ready? How many people within 3 miles of your shop know that you cut hair? Not follow you, not liked a photo one time 8 months ago from an account with a dog as the profile picture. Actually know it. The way they know which gas station has the good car wash. And understand, that's real fame. The good car wash is known for 3 miles in every direction, and it has never once run an ad. Most barbers land in one of two places with that question. Either they have no idea, or the number is so small, they'd rather not say it out loud. Hang on to whichever one you got. It's the most important number in your business, and almost none of us has ever run it. Here's why I want that number. There's a barber I think about more than he'd probably like. His fades are cleaner than mine. And they're the kind of blend you would stop scrolling for. But it's 1 o'clock on a weekday afternoon, and he's parked in his own chair, feet up, thumb going, waiting on a walk-in that the day has already told him isn't coming. Talent isn't his problem. That man can cut. His problem is that 3 miles of people who would happily pay him have no idea he exists. Now go about 8 blocks over. A second barber works there, and between you and me, his fades are fine, but they're not special. Fine the way a hotel breakfast is fine. He's booked out 3 weeks with a deposit to get in the door. Why? Not because he's better, he isn't. But when somebody in that neighborhood thinks the word haircut, his face is the one that shows up. One of these barbers is winning on skill. The other one is winning, period. That gap between how good you are and how known you are is the most expensive gap in this whole entire trade, and most of us have never once looked straight at it. So here's my one job this morning. By the time you flip the sign on the door, more of the right people should know your name than knew it when you woke up. I'm not promising the whole zip code. Even the good car wash started with one clean minivan, but a small business has to be found before it can be chosen. And by the time we sign off, you'll have the exact play for getting found without paying for a single ad and without ever feeling like a salesman. Last week, we worked on keeping the clients you've got. Today is the other half, getting the right ones through the door in the first place. You are not going to outcut this problem. There is no fade good enough to fix a room that doesn't know you're in it. The back half earns its keep today too. When a guy asks his phone where to get a fade now, a machine writes the answer. And I've got brand new numbers on how it decides whose name to say. A cobbler from the Middle Ages shows up to fix your feed, a man who's been dead 600 years and still understands the algorithm better than most of us. And one survey number puts the oldest marketing tool in this trade back on top of everything the internet has built. One more thing before the Mindset Minute. Nobody made you show up this morning. No one scheduled it. No one's grading it. And scrolling was right there. Scrolling is always right there. It's the roommate who never pays rent. But you came anyway to do the business side of the job before your first client ever sits down. That choice is most of the difference between a hobby and a business. So keep me company today while we work. The live chat is here the entire show. Say something in there so I know you're real. The comments stay open, and mail at beforethechop.com never closes. Mindset Minute first, then we build the whole thing. Think about the professionals you actually trust with something that matters. The doctor, the mechanic you finally found who doesn't lie to you, the accountant who saved your tax season. Not one of them is hiding. Everyone has a sign, a listing, a way to be found. Something that says plainly, this is what I do, this is where I am, come to me. Nobody calls that ego. A professional accepts a simple fact. The people who need him cannot read his mind. Being findable is part of the service, which brings me to idea number 1 this morning. Marketing is not bragging. Marketing is just making yourself findable to the people who already need exactly what you do. I know why the word sits wrong in your mouth. For a lot of good barbers, marketing sounds like showing off, and showing off feels like the opposite of the job. You got into this to let the work talk, so you keep your head down. You cut clean. You tell yourself that if you're good enough, the chair fills on its own. Let me be gentle here, because that comes from a good place. But staying quiet about good work isn't humility. It's a slow way to stay invisible, dressed up as a virtue. Picture the guy across town for a minute, the one with the cowlick no barber has ever solved, still bouncing from shop to shop. He needed you, and he couldn't find you. Your modesty didn't spare him anything. You just left him stuck with a barber who isn't as good as you. Hiding good work has a cost. It's real, and somebody else always pays it. So flip the whole frame. Every post, every photo of a cut you're proud of, every time your name and your work lands somewhere a stranger can stumble onto them, that isn't you begging. It's you doing that guy a favor, and he doesn't know that he needs it yet. So reframe it that way, and the discomfort mostly drains out. You're not performing. You're leaving the light on so somebody can find the door. If you've got to get back to your day, there's today's Mindset Minute. Being good is step 1. Being findable is step 2. And step 2 is not optional. For everyone else staying, let's get into the actual play, because be findable is a nice sentence right up until somebody actually makes you do it, and then most barbers freeze. The whole play fits in one line, so I'll put it up front. Marketing for a barber is not production. It's documentation plus proximity. Showing the real work to the right 100 people. And the barber who gets that beats the barber chasing a million strangers every single time. Let me split the room into 2 barbers, because almost every one of you is standing on one of these 2 paths right now. Let's call the first one the producer. He decides he's going to start doing content. So he buys a ring light. He watches other people's reels and he studies their transition. He waits until he has a real idea, a clever one, something actually worth posting. Then he scripts it up in his head. He sets up the shot. He films it 4 times and doesn't like any of the 4. Now the whole thing feels like a second job he's bad at and doesn't get paid for. 2 weeks in, he's exhausted, and he's posted twice, and both posts are him trying to be a filmmaker instead of a barber. Then he quits and tells everybody content doesn't work for barbers. Now the second barber. Call him the documenter. He doesn't have ideas. He has a Tuesday. A guy sits down with a grown-out mess and a photo on his phone. So the documenter props his own phone against the mirror and lets it run. He doesn't perform. He just talks the way he always talks. He shows the before. He shows the decision. He says, your hair grows forward here, so I'm not going to go as tight as that photo. And then he shows the after. That's the whole post. It took him no extra time because he was cutting the hair anyway. He didn't produce anything. He documented something true and real. Here's the part that matters. The producer is trying to be interesting, and the documenter is just being real. Real wins because a stranger can smell the difference in about a second and a half. And maybe you're sitting there thinking, that's fine for the transformation, but I don't have anything worth documenting. You are wrong. and I can prove it here in about 10 seconds. You're already sitting on about a week's worth of content and calling it a slow day. The consultation, where you figure out what a guy actually wants versus what he asks for. Film it. That's gold, and nobody teaches it. The honest price conversation, said out loud instead of mumbled, the moment you talk a client out of a product he doesn't need, which builds more trust than any sales pitch ever could. The kid's first haircut, the regular you've cut for 9 years, all of these are posts. And all of them already happened today, on the clock, whether you film them or not. So the shortage was never content. What you're missing is a camera propped up on a shelf instead of buried in your pocket. Underneath the producer's whole struggle sits this one lie, that marketing is a performance you bolt onto the job. It isn't. Your slowest day in the shop, filmed honestly, is better content than your best idea because the idea is about you and the slow day is about the work. People don't book a barber because his transitions are clean. They book him because they watched him make one real decision on somebody's head and thought, oh, that guy actually knows what he's doing. Let me put it in terms of a thing I'm genuinely bad at, which is fishing. I'm horrible at it. A man buys the biggest net he can afford. He drives to the coast and hurls it as far into the open ocean as his arms will throw it. He stands there all day and he pulls in some seaweed, a boot, and one fish that was never going to be dinner. That's every barber chasing viral. The barber who actually eats finds one spot, his spot, the local water. He shows up to it week after week. Before long, the fish know the sound of his boat. Now, I have to be honest about my own wiring because I'm the producer by nature. And I had to beat it out of myself, basically. I think in systems. My instinct, faced with post your work, was to build the whole rig first. The lighting, the posting schedule, the little content pipeline. A 14-step process for a thing that needed one conversation with a camera propped on a shelf. I over-engineered it until it was too complicated to actually do, which is a very sophisticated way of never actually starting. If that's you, if you've got a beautiful plan for the content you're going to make once everything is set up, I see you because I am you. The fix was not a better system. It was propping the phone against the mirror on an ordinary afternoon, or in my case, going for a walk and letting a real interaction, a real thought, or a real cut be enough. Don't take just my word for it either. Earlier this year, a barber named Grant Branham, third generation, cutting at a shop in Glasgow, Kentucky, a town of about 14,000 people, posted a transformation video like 100 other ones he'd posted. But this one caught. Within a few months, he was pulling hundreds of thousands of followers, and on his own count, something like 250 million views. Here's the number that matters for us. Clients started driving into that small Kentucky shop from 10 different states. He didn't produce a masterpiece. He documented his work consistently until one true post found the current. When a reporter asked him to explain the blow-up, he was refreshingly useless about it. He basically said, "Everything popped, and I have no idea why." I love that answer because it's the true one. You cannot predict which honest post catches the current. You can only make sure honest posts are in the water when one of them finally does. But I don't want Branham's number in your head as the goal because it will wreck you. 250 million views is a lottery ticket, not a plan. Here's the real scoreboard, and it's so much smaller than you think. You do not need to go viral. You need about 100 of the right local people to know that you cut hair. That's a full book. Do the math on your own life. Say 100 people within driving distance knew you were good and knew where you were. Each one comes every 3 to 4 weeks. You're booked top to bottom. The producer strains for 1 million strangers, and 99% of them will never be within 20 miles of his shop. Meanwhile, 100 reachable people down the street never find out that he actually exists. Stop trying to be famous. Start trying to be known, local, and specific to the people who can actually sit down. Now put real numbers on it. Say you want to be booked 4 days a week, 8 cuts a day. That's 32 spots to fill. And most of those are regulars cycling back every few weeks, not brand new faces. Even at the low end of the math, 100 loyal locals more than covers it. 100. You could nearly put names to that number. It's a neighborhood. It's a couple of office buildings. It's one busy gym. Set that beside the million follower fantasy and the whole thing stops looking like a mountain and it starts looking like a propped up phone plus one good moment per haircut. Now go back and get the number that I asked you for at the top of the show. The people within 3 miles who actually know you cut hair. Hold it up next to 100. Whatever the distance is between those two numbers, that is the entire size of your problem. Not your fades, not your prices, not the algorithm, and not the shop's location. Here's the mercy in it. A talent gap takes years to close. A luck gap never closes at all. But this one is a knowing gap. It closes for free. You are one honest post at a time away from a completely different business. And the only thing standing in the way is that right 100 people have not been told. One thing goes in the comments today before the craft corner, and skip the humble version because I don't want it. What is the one post, one reel, one photo, one clip that has ever actually put a client in your chair? Somebody who booked and said, I saw your work. If you've got one, it's proof that this works. If you've got none, there's your homework. Craft Corner, because everything I just said lives online right now, and the oldest, strongest marketing a barber has ever had happens in the chair. It happens off camera, and it costs nothing. It's the one thing the whole internet is a copy of anyway, and one person telling another person that you have to go see my guy is it. Here's the problem, though. Most of your cuts are good, and good does not get talked about. Nobody walks out of a good haircut and texts a friend, hey, just got a solid, competent haircut. Good is the price of being open. Good is essentially invisible. The client is happy, he pays, he leaves. And he says nothing to anybody because nothing happened worth saying. You can give 400 good haircuts in a row and generate exactly 0 word of mouth. Then you wonder why the referrals aren't coming. Picture the last genuinely good haircut you gave. Clean, dialed in, the guy nodded at the mirror and you felt it because he meant it. Then he walked out and told absolutely nobody because good is precisely what he expected when he booked with you. Expectation met is not a story. Expectation beaten is a story. Slow down for 10 honest seconds and do the one thing he wasn't expecting, and you hand him something his mouth can't help but repeat later. My favorite version of this costs exactly $0. Catch the detail he stopped even bothering to mention. Maybe it's the cowlick in the back he assumes every barber is going to fight him on. Maybe it's how he actually parts it on a work day versus a Saturday. Name it before he does, or fix it without being asked. You've just become the barber who finally got it, and that sentence travels farther than any fade. So here's the technique, and you can run it starting with your very own next client. Every cut, plan one thing they'll text a friend about. One thing above the haircut. Not a bigger fade somehow, but a moment. It can be tiny. You remembered his kid just started kindergarten, and you asked about the first week by name. You caught him tugging the left side and you fixed a thing he'd stopped mentioning to barbers because nobody ever listened, nobody ever cared. You gave him 30 seconds of honest, true advice on growing it out instead of upselling him product that he doesn't need. The hot towel he wasn't expecting. It could be anything, but one deliberate moment that is not the transaction. Because here's what happened. Because here's what a moment does that a good fade cannot. A good fade gives him a haircut. A moment gives him a story. And a story is the only thing he can actually carry out of your shop and hand to somebody else. Yeah, my barber's good ends the conversation, but my barber remembered my kid's name and talked me out of buying pomade I didn't need. That's a real story. Stories get repeated at the next barbecue and in the group chat and at the office. You're not just cutting hair, you're handing every satisfied client a small, specific thing to say about you when your name comes up. That's word of mouth, engineered on purpose, one client at a time. So this week, what's the one moment you're going to plant? And if a client of yours has ever texted a buddy about something you did, tell me what it was. Put it in the comments. I promise you, it most likely was not the fade. Before the news, if a post, a reel, anything from this show ever helped you get a real client, that's the mail that I want. Because that's the whole point of this thing. So mail it beforethechop.com, the chat, the comments. Now let's get into the news. The ground under how people find a local business just shifted hard this month, and it changes your marketing whether you're watching or not. But first, a quick break. While the network sells some ad time it does not have, Barber News is next.
Ever wonder if your fade is really symmetrical, or if you're just hoping? Introducing Fade GPT. It watches your cut through a webcam mounted to your mirror and calmly informs you in a soothing British accent exactly where you went wrong. Fade GPT has studied every haircut ever photographed on the internet. It has never actually cut hair. It doesn't need to. It just needs to judge you. Upgrade to Fade GPT Pro, and it emails your client a full report before you're even done with the blend. Fade GPT, because 12 years behind the chair taught you nothing an algorithm can't second guess in real time.
At 2:30, he was going to come in. He had an appointment. He had a confirmation text. He had, by all accounts, every intention in the world. And then, nothing. This is the story of the appointment that never was. Somewhere out there, a chair sat empty for 45 minutes, warmed by hope alone. The barber did not get angry. The barber stared at the clock and thought seriously about becoming an electrician. Every year, thousands of chairs sit empty for reasons we will never know and clients we will never see again. This has been a message from the Council for Realistic Expectations. Please, for the love of everything, just cancel.
Welcome back, Fade documentarians, propped phone filmmakers, and everybody who spent the break counting how many people within 3 miles actually know what you do. I'm David Ford. If you're just pulling up a chair mid-show, here's the morning in one line. Being good is step 1. Being findable is step 2. And you don't need a million strangers. You need about 100 of the right locals to know you cut hair. Still ahead, a machine now writes the answer when a guy asks his phone where to get a fade, and I've got the brand new numbers on it. Barber News right now. The news this week is actually really one question asked twice. How does a stranger find you now, and who's holding the keys? Lead story, Search Engine Journal ran a piece just yesterday breaking down brand new local search data from a research firm called Whitespark. Here's the headline for us. When somebody searches for a local business now, Google's AI answer, You know, the little block of text the machine writes at the top before any actual listings shows up on about 68% of local searches. The old map of little business listings, the map pack we all learned to actually game, 39%. The robot's answer now beats the list of real shops by nearly 30 points. The analysts put the stakes about as plainly as I could. They said, your competitive set just got bigger. You're no longer just competing with the business down the street. He's not exaggerating. It used to be you versus the 3 shops in your neighborhood. Now a machine writes the answer when a guy asks his phone where to get a fade, and it pulls that answer from wherever people are already talking. The same report found most of what the AI quotes comes from off your own website, from places like YouTube, and also public forums. So the barber who documents his work in public, out where it can be seen and quoted, is the one the machine can find to recommend. The barber who's invisible online is invisible to the robot too, and the robot is the new front door. Notice which barbers this actually rewards, because it flips the old game on its head. For 20 years, getting found meant gaming a system, stuffing keywords, buying the ad, chasing the ranking. What feeds the machine now is the opposite of gaming it. Real answers, in public, from somebody who obviously does the work. A barber explaining honestly on camera why a receding hairline wants a different shape, that's exactly the thing the AI reaches for because it's genuinely useful to the guy who asked. So the most human, least salesy move you've got, just help out loud, where it can be seen. That turns out to be the best search strategy you've got. Basically entirely by accident. Second story, same theme, sharper edge. Also this month, Search Engine Journal reported a bug in Google business profiles, the free listing with your reviews on it. Owners logged in and saw the words, "You have no reviews yet." Barbers with hundreds of reviews. One documented case had over 900 reviews showing to the public, while the owner's own dashboard read 0. Now, the reviews were still live for customers. It was a display glitch, and Google didn't put out a real explanation. So I'm not going to hand you a villain here because the facts don't support one. But feel the drop in your stomach for that shop owner for a second. That feeling is the lesson. Every review you've earned, years of good work, digitized, lives on a platform that you don't own and you can't control. One morning, it can just blink to 0. So the point is, build the reviews, absolutely. Chase them. They're your word of mouth in writing, but do not build your whole house on rented land. The relationships live in your chair and in your own phone. The platform is just where you can display them, and the landlord can change the locks. So what did the news just do? It made this morning's argument for me twice. How people find you is changing fast, and it's moving further out of your hands. A machine writes the recommendation now, and the reviews that feed it sit on somebody else's server. You cannot control the algorithm, and you cannot control the robot. Exactly one thing in this system is yours outright, and it's the same thing it's always been. The actual work, done well, documented honestly, and a real relationship with the people in front of you. Everything else is weather. Build on the thing you own. Time for the hot take, and this one comes in with a door held open. If you're already posting your work consistently and it's working, ride right through this next bit because I'm not talking to you. But maybe you've been standing at the edge of this for a year, telling yourself that you'll start once you have a better camera or a better idea or a better anything. Then I need 90 seconds because I want to take away your favorite excuse. Here's the take. Stop trying to be creative. It's the single biggest thing killing barber marketing, and it's disguised as effort. Creative is what you reach for when you believe your actual work isn't interesting enough on its own. So you add the trending sound, the transition, the joke, the concept, the hook, and you bury the one genuinely interesting thing, the haircut, under a pile of production nobody asked for. Here's the cruelty of it. The harder you work on the creative part, the worse it usually does, because now it reads as an ad, and people scroll past ads. So watch what happens the second a barber discovers a trending sound. Suddenly, the haircut is background noise. The transition is the whole show. The clip screams, "I made this for the algorithm," instead of "come sit in my chair." Viewers have a finely tuned nose for that. They can smell an ad through a phone screen, and their thumb just keeps moving. Meanwhile, the boring clip, the one where a guy just explains why he's leaving the top longer than the photo, holds people all the way to the end. It's teaching them something true about their own head. Nobody in the history of the internet ever booked a haircut because a fade to black was smooth. They booked because the barber sounded like he knew what he was doing. The documenter, the guy who shows a real cut and says one true thing, beats the producer's masterpiece 9 times out of 10, and he spends 1/10 of the effort doing it. So it comes down to a choice. Either you decide right now that your real, unglamorous, actual work is enough to show, and you start putting it out there this week, ring light or no ring light, clever or not, or you keep waiting for a version of you that produces beautiful content. That version is never once going to arrive. And while you wait, the barber with worse fades and a propped up phone books out the whole neighborhood you are both fighting over. Documentation you'll actually do beats production that you're always about to start. So pick the one that you'll actually do. Let me put this in a longer frame because none of it is as new as it feels, and that should calm you down. Then versus now. Go back a few hundred years, before most people walking past your door could read a painted name over it. How did anyone find a business? By a picture. You didn't go to Miller's Cobblery. You went to the shop at the sign of the boot. The tavern hung out a sign so you knew the ale was poured there. There was actually laws about it. A brewer had to hang a sign or he couldn't sell. The locksmith hung a key. The pawnbroker hung his 3 balls. And yes, the barber had his pole. The whole system ran on one rule. Hang a picture of the thing you actually do so a stranger going past knows in one glance what happens inside and whether he needs it. Now look at your phone. The public is still moving past, still not reading, still deciding in one glance, except now they're scrolling instead of walking. And the sign you hang out is your feed. Your before and afters, your grid, the first thing a stranger sees when your name comes up, that is your boot. That is your pole. Here's the part worth carrying out of the history, because the old sign makers understood something that a lot of us barbers forgot. The cobbler hung a boot. He didn't hang a clever logo or a mission statement or a picture of himself looking moody. He hung the actual thing he made, because the sign's only job was to show the trade instantly to somebody who wasn't going to slow down. So look at what you're posting and ask the medieval question. Is this a boot? Can a stranger tell in one glance that a barber works here and he's actually good? Or did I hang a clever sign that shows everything except the haircut? Show the boot. Lead with the work. The oldest marketing rule in the trade still runs the newest platform. One number before we land, because I've spent the whole morning telling you to get online, and I owe you the thing that keeps it honest. GatherUp, a reviews software company, runs a survey every year. 1,000+ Americans on how people actually find and pick a local business. The newest one has 2 numbers in it that belong side by side. 60% of people have gone straight around the internet and asked a friend or a family member for a recommendation. And exactly 1% start their search for a local business on social media. 1. The feed everybody's grinding themselves to dust for is where almost no search begins. And the oldest technology in this trade, one person vouching for another, is still sitting in 6 out of 10 toolkits. So, hear what that does to everything I just told you, because it does not let the feed off the hook. It tells you what the feed is for. The same survey says most people, 58%, start the actual hunt in a search box. And the second a friend drops your name, you know the next thing that man does. He looks you up. That is the moment all the documentation goes to work, which means the online work and the chair work aren't two different jobs. The post gets you found and gets you checked out. The moment in the chair, the one that gives him a story to tell, gets you recommended. Those two numbers together are the whole strategy in one picture. The feed is the window. It's how a stranger or a client's friend sees that you exist and that you're good. Word of mouth is the door. It's what a trusted human being says that actually walks him inside. A window with no door is a barber with a beautiful grid and an empty chair. A door with no window is a barber whose 3 loyal clients love him and can't send him anybody because there's nothing online to point a friend at. Build both. Know which one is which. So here's where I'll leave you. You are almost certainly better than your book says you are. I don't mean that as flattery. The great barber nobody can find is the most common tragedy in this trade, and I don't want it to be you for one more month. Being good was step 1, and you've done step 1. Step 2 is letting the right people find out, not by becoming a performer, by documenting the true, unglamorous work you're already doing, and by planting one thing worth talking about in every haircut, so the finding and the telling both start working for you at once. A great barber that nobody knows about isn't a great barber. He's just a rumor. Don't be a rumor. Prop the phone up on the next real conversation, on the next real cut. Hang the boot. Give one client one thing to text a friend about today. Somebody may have came to mind while I was talking. A barber you know who's genuinely gifted and genuinely stuck, cutting to an empty afternoon and blaming the economy. Send him this episode. His problem was never the cutting. The right people simply have no idea he's there doing it. And being invisible is a completely different thing to fix than a bad fade. Reach us anytime, mail it beforethechop.com. And the comments under the replay are wide open. Catch the show live Monday morning, 11:30 here in the mountains, 1:30 on the East Coast. Afterwards, the main segment and the Mindset Minute get cut out into their own standalone clip right here, so you can hand a barber just the piece he needs without making him sit through the whole hour. Rather listen than watch. The whole show's a podcast now, internationally syndicated, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get them. Stick it on for the drive in and let Monday morning ride along with you. Next Monday, we stop talking about filling the chair and start talking about what you build in the quiet stretches so that you're ready when the big opportunity finally shows up. Because most of you aren't waiting on clarity. You're waiting on permission. And I want to take that excuse too. I'm David Ford. This is Before the Chop. Go get behind the chair, chop some hair, and go crush it.